I don't like split decision wins in very close fights like this because it just encourages the party who gets the nod to move on and not acknowledge that this fight could have went the other way. And this is one of them fights there. I'm not a screaming robbery. I'm not saying Guido won the fight necessarily, but it was very close. This was a very close fight. Very close fight. VIANELLO, big Italian kid, well conditioned, strong. He moved well. Ajagba, not very exciting, but competent, big long jab. Good 1-2. VIANELLO rocked Ajagba in the second round. Had him hemmed up on the ropes for a little while. I thought the referee got in between VIANELLO trying to stop Ajagba, but the round obviously ended. VIANELLO gambled in the third, thinking that Ajagba still could be hurt, let his hands go. But Ajagba, I'm not sure if he was hurt that bad. Could have been a balance thing. Ajagba came back into it, not necessarily looking spectacular with his 1-2s, but was never able to subdue VIANELLO, who was always coming back with them right-hand counters without ever dominating Ajagba. Ajagba switched to southpaw in the 8th, for what reason I'm not sure. He done okay at the start, but Guido worked it out, coming back with his own right hands again, and he finished the fight stronger. Ajagba had success in the middle rounds, and it was very close all the way through, and Ajagba eked out a split decision, and he'll move on. And if I was managing him, I wouldn't be looking to put him back in with Guido, but that fight should be run again. It was that close. It was hard to separate, actually. Very hard to separate. And I was thinking all the way through watching it, is this one of them where I'm going to be the odd guy out who thought it was a close fight? But no, it was a split decision. It was a split decision. I thought they was probably going to give it UD to Ajagba, but no, it was close, and the scorecards reflected that. And I thought Guido did well. I thought Ajagba, you know, without looking spectacular, as I've mentioned, he was competent, but he is one-paced. Does come a bit predictable. Looks athletic, no lateral movement, but he does have that long reach. Good competitive fight. The 10 rounds wouldn't have done Ajagba no harm. Can Guido build on this? This is his second loss. He lost on a cut eye stoppage to Jonathan Rice last year. Called out Jared Anderson. He's not going to get that fight. Jared didn't look impressive in the main event. There should be a culture. I'm not going to say there should be a rule. I'm not going to say that. But there should be a culture that encourages close decision wins, like Ajagba versus VIANELLO. A culture from media, sanctioning bodies, and commissions that we would like you to run this back, rather than you take a contentious decision and pretend that you're some world beater. Kind of like Lemus versus Hitchens. Need to run that back. And that's one of the issues with boxing, is everybody brings their chips to the table, and as soon as they're up a little, they want to bail on the game and say, oh, no, I've had enough of that. And it leads to a sport where often fighters are prepared to do the bare minimum to move to the next level, rather than conclusively, or at least attempting to conclusively, end the dispute out of who's better. I don't like it. I personally just don't like it. Back in the day, they did have that culture. Oh, it's close. Well, this is going to be run back, surely. And often it was run back. Today, it's like, if the politics are on your side and you can eke out the decision, well, why would you go back there and run it back? That's a dumb move. You're not contractually bound to do that. Why would you do that? Yeah, well, why you wouldn't do that is because there's a culture that doesn't encourage that. It encourages almost cowardice, where fighters are not trying to prove that once and for all, I am better than this guy. And if you have a rematch and it's another contentious decision, okay, can't keep fighting him, but it should at least be a rematch. At least have that one rematch and let's see what's happening. The parties on the right side of the close verdict are also benefiting of this attention deficit that we have in society, where, you know, like, they're outraged for 5 minutes, and then by the time the next fight that catches their attention is on the screen, they forgot all about the close fight that they were so outraged about. But it is what it is. 1 minute into the fourth round, MEHRY threw 33 punches to Jared Anderson's 200 plus. That's the only stat you need to know. I think the 9th and 10th was missing of the video that I watched of this fight, and I'm not sad it wasn't there, to be honest. So it was a no-show from the 5'9" RYAD MEHRY. He came there to survive and get his check. But this is the business of entertainment. And this was supposed to be a showcase fight for Jared Anderson, not for RYAD MEHRY. Came there with no ambition. He spoke beforehand about Anderson's power perhaps not being elite power, and he exposed that perhaps. And all the questions, the relevant questions from the fallout for this fight, have to be answered by Jared Anderson. He's the blue chip commodity. He's the headliner of this Texas show. So it went to 10 rounds. And there's this discussion often about women's boxing. Should it be 10 threes or 10 twos? I think for the most part it needs to stay 10 twos. And perhaps certain title fights where the women want to fight 10 threes, you can make an exception. Well, there might be an argument to make certain fights for men 10 twos. And that was one there. RYAD MEHRY versus Jared Anderson. 10 toes down, 10 2-minute rounds. We can chop it up about how his opponent was reluctant, but it's your show. These are the situations you find yourself in as a boxer, that the likes of Anthony Joshua when he fought Jermaine Franklin, although Jermaine Franklin was a lot more ambitious than RYAD MEHRY, a lot more. But that fight went the distance, and the customer made their complaints. What's happened to AJ? Where's the old AJ? Well, Jared Anderson hasn't even did enough that we can ask him what happened to the old Jared Anderson. What's going on with the new Jared Anderson? You know what I mean? He's supposed to be the top boy American prospect in the heavyweight division. Called out Deontay Wilder this week. 2023, Bob Arum declared that this is the year that Jared Anderson was going to take on contenders. He fought Charles Martin, who he was supposed to blow out the water, got hurt and taken the distance, and didn't look $1 million. Let's keep it real. And then from he's going to take on contenders this year, he went down to Rudenko in his next fight. And now he's fought this Belgium heavyweight, blown up cruiserweight, RYAD MEHRY. It wasn't brought in to win. It was boring. It was boring. They said the FA Ajagba Guido VIANELLO fight was boring. No, that wasn't boring. That was a decent fight. This was boring. This is a boring fight. And, you know, I think at 24, Bob Arum has got to make his mind up. And I think the solution here is to find him the highest rated contender who will fight Jared Anderson, sink or swim, and let's see what's going on. Because as for entertainment, Jared Anderson's stock has plummeted in the last year or so. And then add to that, you've got the extracurricular out the ring activities that he shouldn't be getting involved in. What's this kid about? Is this kid on it? What do you want? Now, even if Bob has to ship him out from off the top-ranked platform to get this career-defining opponent, this is what needs to be done. Jared, 24 years of age, moves to 17-0, 15 inside the distance. RYAD MEHRY, 31 years of age from Brussels, is now 32-3 with 26 inside the distance. He basically stayed on the back foot behind a high guard, and with that squat physique he has, he's already a difficult target. But it has to be said, it's not like he was just clutching onto Jared Anderson and stopping him from working. He wasn't doing that. He was retreating behind a high guard, and Jared just couldn't open him up. Jared himself looked bored with the fight. Recently he came out saying he's doing this for money. Well, they all do it for money, but there needs to be a passion there. There was the breakdown with Roy Jones. He started crying, saying, I'm too young. They're putting too much pressure on me. Then there was the mediocre performance against Charles Martin. Started crying in his mum's lap after the issues outside the ring with the law. I don't think it's time for panic alarms. But part of him doesn't want to box. That's obvious. Pretty obvious. And it's not a matter of wasting our time. It's a matter of him wasting his time more than anything. I think he needs to smell that sense of danger. Put him in there in fights that could possibly 50-50, or perhaps he's the underdog. And maybe that will rev him up. And if he loses, then, you know, he'll know how much he really wants it. If he wins, let me tell you this now. If you win, you shouldn't even celebrate. When you win at a high level, your problems just start. Because it gets harder and harder from here. Blatant American bias from ESPN ranking Deontay Wilder number 7 and Jared Anderson number 8 amongst their top 10 heavyweights. Well, you know, they've got to promote their product and they have to include at least a couple of American heavyweights in the top 10. But the truth is, I would argue there's not an American heavyweight who's currently worthy of being in the top 10. I would argue that. And Jared Anderson certainly shouldn't be number 8. And Wilder, with 1 win in the last 5 years, 1 win in his last 4, is not a top 10 contender either. Michael Gomez Jr. is a testament to how fit you have to be as a boxer. This kind of level of fitness can compensate for natural ability and learnt technical ability at this level. As Michael Gomez goes up, and I'm not even talking world level, because they're talking about Reece Bellotti, and that's British Commonwealth type level. I have a feeling he'll have to answer a lot of questions. He's the son of a Manchester legend, Michael Gomez. He is a big super featherweight who probably shouldn't be boxing the way he boxes with them lengthy dimensions he has at the weight. But it is what it is. It's entertaining. At 29 years of age, he wants to move on. He asked for the Reece Bellotti fight. Eddie seemed to agree it's a good fight. He landed a right uppercut on his opponent, Kane Baker, defending his English title, as Baker, as explained by Tony Bellew, extended his head over his lead front foot or front knee and got caught with the uppercut. It was a competitive fight up until then. Kane Baker, a lot of volume, was doing pretty well up until that point. And the right uppercut spilled Kane to the canvas. Didn't look like he was going to get up, but he did, and shipped a lot more punishment, which perhaps the referee shouldn't have allowed him to take, and Michael Gomez Jr. retained his English title. Ellie Scotney, 26 years of age, unified her WBO belt with the IBF, taking a clear 10-2 decision over Segalaine Lefebvre. Good fight, but Segalaine couldn't deal with the volume punching and the physical strength of the shorter Scotney, who hammered Segalaine to the body all throughout. Her French opponent found herself on the canvas several times when she herself leaned in, maybe to try and get refuge from them body shots, and found herself either wrestled or pulled down to the canvas about several similar sequences throughout the fight. From range, Segalaine did land some power shots, the right hand, and Ellie had to take her fair share to get in her range to land her power bombs, and she did so and unified both straps. Good win, trained by Shane McGuigan. Rihanna Dixon, another Matchroom fighter, she won the lightweight world title against her opponent. I didn't see much of that. William Crowler, younger brother Anthony, got a first round win on the card. I believe Jimmy Sain's opponent, the Polish kid Koleshi, would have gave him a decent test if the head clash didn't have him bleeding all over the place, but Jimmy battered him for 4 rounds to go 4-0 at 160. Jack Turner, bantamweight puncher, he goes to 6-0, taking out his undersized opponent. There was one particularly vicious left hook that floored his opponent, from my memory. Jordan Flynn stayed on course for his showdown with Cameron Vung, who was injured, a shoulder injury. Jordan Flynn didn't look impressive to me over his undersized opponent. And then we get to the main event. 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA International Super Featherweight title. I didn't think there was no belts on the line for this, but apparently there was. That belt was on the line. ZELFA Barrett runs his record to 31 wins, 2 losses, 17 inside the distance, stopping Jordan Gill in 10 rounds. Jordan Gill is now 28 wins, 9 losses, 9 inside the distance, 3 losses, 1 draw. He was in charge until midway, and that bruised left eye seemed to become a distraction as he came forward, looking to land powerful shots. ZELFA was keen not to get hit by them shots, and the ends justify the means. So when I was saying that he was moving excessively in the early rounds, he got the job done in the end. After ZELFA landed that right cross in one of the earlier rounds, which stunned Jordan, it didn't stop Jordan coming forward, but ZELFA found he didn't have to move as excessively. He could use his jab, change angles on Gill because of the foot speed advantage, and had the better variety of shots. Whipping left hooks that ZELFA throws were very effective. But it was mainly the jab. The jab was giving Jordan all types of issues. He couldn't get past it. You know, Ben Shalom, the guru, couldn't do anything to help Jordan. And ZELFA got back into it. And then Body Shots took him apart later. It was a good performance by ZELFA. And they're looking towards a title shot against the WBA 130-pound champion, Lamont Roach, the Golden Boy. Shouldn't be too hard a fight to make. And it's a fight that ZELFA could conceivably win.
I follow that phrase, to each his own. You know, everybody's looking for the next star. Everybody's talking about how much money you can make and how many fans you can have and things like that. We really don't know what Inoue's what his goals are. Are his goals to be the star in boxing? If his goal is to be the star in boxing, you got to come to the United States. It is what it is. You got to cross those seas. You got to knock out some Americans to make these other Americans take notice of who you are and what you're doing. There's a lot of people in the boxing world that respect Inoue and what he's done. But if you're someone like me, I'm saying, hey, let's get him. I don't think he's going to lose, but let's get him out of his own backyard.
There are Americans who are suspicious that if a boxing event doesn't take place over there, it doesn't really count. There are elements of xenophobia to the discussion. There are also elements of documented boxing history. Battle of the Long Count, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, No Mas. These are great boxing events that took place in America. A lot of boxers are turning to the podcast game to have the trending video is the goal. That's where your platform can really kick off. That's where the advertisement revenue can start kicking in. The sponsorship deals can be developed off the back of that. Saying something controversial is very important. So I partly believe Shawn Porter couldn't have been serious in totality with what he said. A champion in 4 weight classes, 2 of them undisputed. A certified Hall of Famer. In my opinion, pound for pound #1. Tied with Terence Crawford. If I'm correct and Shawn was just trying to cause some controversy, stir people up, then he did a good job. But on the other hand, if Shawn actually believes that Inoue, or anyone else for that matter, who is successful in their own country, has to go across America to prove their greatness, well, it's just something that they're holding on to, that's an actual reality in 2024. If this was being said when Floyd was active, there wouldn't be no pushback. But you know, in the last couple of years, Showtime, HBO, gone out of business. Fox abandoned the PBC. Terence Crawford, alongside Inoue, best fighter in the game, has to go through all types of hoops to get a fight in America. Then we got the Saudis putting on events that America, or no one for that matter, can compete with around the world. Wilder, he's gone over to Saudi Arabia. His fight with Zhang in the 5+5 will probably be announced tomorrow at the press conference. Other PBC heavyweights like Frank Sanchez, he's on the undercard of Usyk versus Fury on the 18th of May. I'll tell Shawn Porter this, to wrap it up. Inoue will probably go to America when the Saudis start putting events on over there. That's probably when he'll go. And aside from the obvious difficulties traveling to different continents to watch boxing live, the television audience in 2024 is adjusting to boxing as a global event, not an American event, a global event. And most of the hardcore boxing fans and the casuals, I would say, are transitioning into a more global-minded perspective. If the Saudis are putting on the events, they're going to get the pay-per-view money. If it's America, let's say a different time from now, or if you like, just go back to when Floyd was active. Manny Pacquiao, De La Hoya, Mike Tyson, then they'll get the events. Before the Saudis came along, since 2017 when AJ made his mark, we've been putting on at least 2 stadium fights a year in the UK with AJ and Tyson Fury. Not being a braggart, but the current Saudi movement has started from the British boxing scene. That's where it started. And with that,
I'm gone. Ghost, peace, signing over.